I was scooped up at the age of 9 by Cardiff City Football Club. 2 weeks. I was released from the club. I then had to go and sit my ATAR exam. And I remember getting a phone call from my now wife saying, Lloyd, I'm pregnant. You walk into a GP surgery, you quickly come to realize it's often female friendly, child friendly, and there's good reason for that. But I never looked around and thought, yeah, this is a real welcoming environment for men. Think about that lifespan. You've gone from 0 to death, and there's only 10 to 15 years where you're not being cared for or you're not caring for someone else.
What's your thoughts on finding a purpose?
We're getting into the Sunday existentialist deep dive.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow,
that's
right,
a big question.
Welcome back to the Crooked Smart podcast brought to you by Macromedia. Today we have on Dr. Lloyd Evans, who has a very interesting origin story.
Fascinating life story. Yeah, he went through a lot in a very short period of time when he was younger than us. That's obviously led to him having to grow up really quickly, and I just can't believe how much he had going on at that time and how he was able to just
Turn his life around.
and just be so resilient.
Yeah, we talk about his origin story, how he got to where he is today, and the stuff he does today with his own specialized clinic, Man Health, as well as his podcast that he co-hosts on Tackle Talk. So it's a really interesting episode, and I really recommend you stay around to the end, leave a comment, like, and subscribe.
And we're wearing the same shirt for you, for the viewers.
Let's get into it. Dr. Lloyd Evans, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your time.
No, pleasure. Thank you very much. Starting a little bit late, guys. I won't ask why, but, or maybe we'll get to that halfway through the episode. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
For the audience, Lloyd is a doctor specializing in men's health.
Yeah, it forms part of my role as a GP in general, a general practitioner. But yeah, have a real interest in men's health.
Awesome. So before we get to that, you actually have a very interesting origin story that I would love for you to share with everyone.
Yeah.
Life story.
So where did it all begin?
You have to ask my mum and dad that one, I guess. But so I'm 35 years of age now. I'm Welsh. Grew up in Cardiff or around that area in the UK. I grew up a pretty privileged background, I guess. And I went to a Welsh speaking primary school up until the age of 11. Then I went to a Welsh speaking comprehensive school. So I'm dual language, I guess. Is that the phrase?
Bilingual.
Dual language. There you go. You can tell it's a little
bit
bit
the same thing.
Yeah, I'm bilingual, so I speak Welsh and English. My background is I'm big into soccer. Which about to get used to saying soccer here and not football, which it obviously is back in Wales. So I played a bit of soccer as a child, was not too bad at it, and so ended up playing at a decent level. So I was scooped up at the age of 9 by Cardiff City Football Club, who have been a Premier League football club. They're sort of up and down between Premier League and Championship. So my life at 9 became very much soccer based.
At 9?
At 9 even, and it's pretty intense. You know, you get scooped up and you're training 3 nights a week. I was traveling all over the UK with my Sundays on a bus with loads of other 9, 10, 11-year-olds. And then what I was noticing was all these guys would come along, join the team, and then they'd disappear a year or two later because they maybe weren't quite good enough. And it was, as you got older, it got more and more brutal, more and more cutthroat. So at 16, I was asked to sign full-time. So what we'd call an apprenticeship. So they wanted me to leave school and become a soccer player on their books, ultimately. I was fortunate enough to have very sensible parents, I think, who said, yeah, you can sign and you can go full time, but you've still got to go and study. And you've still got to do your ATAR equivalents, basically, what we call A levels back in the UK. So yeah, I guess I was reasonably sensible as well and listened. So yeah, my life at 16
It's very full on.
Yeah, it became full on. So lots of soccer was full time. 7 days a week. You're thinking about it. It was my job. You had to eat the right things.
Yeah.
Train the right way. I was getting paid clearly at 16 to play, so that was great. Not a huge amount, but it was still great.
More than minimum wage.
Yeah, exactly. It was an apprenticeship wage basically.
Yeah,
So it was just enough to pay your fuel basically to get to work.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did about 8 hours a week study in my own time. So I'd go off on a Monday morning and a Thursday and go back to my old school. And yeah, people would be looking like, I thought you'd left. What's going on? But no, I still studied, went to my maths class, went to my biology classes, but then I'd leave school and go and play soccer and travel around the UK playing. So
Sounds like the life.
oh, it was good. It was different.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons, definitely. But it was a bit mad. As an apprentice, it's not quite that sort of glamorous lifestyle that people think, oh, you're a soccer player, you're with Cardiff City Football Club, that must be amazing. But I was like, at 16, you're still cleaning the boots of the pros, sort of the guys who are in their 30s, like who've made it, who are multi-millionaires, and I was there cleaning their boots as part of my apprenticeship. You'd be sweeping the changing rooms.
Yeah, right.
You sort of earned your keep, so to speak. So yeah, you're still playing, you're still you're still part of the team, and I was playing reserve team level. I was training with the first team. But at the same time, they'd all go home to their families, and I'm this 17-year-old staying behind, as I say, scrubbing boots, mopping changing rooms, putting in extra work because I wasn't quite there yet, So yeah, that formed 16 to 18 for me. It was pretty interesting. Yeah,
I'm always just baffled by these youth academies at these massive sport clubs, and obviously the whole thing, I guess, with that is getting you in early and making you love the club, basically, right? And
yeah,
but it's amazing to me how early, and I don't know if it's as full on here in Australia with sport. Like, obviously, I feel like parents are almost inclined to get their kids to play as many sports as possible, but
it's a lot more prodigies.
Yeah, and so many wunderkins, and like. Do you see people like there's a 15-year-old that debuts for Barcelona last week?
Yeah. I know.
It's unbelievable. It gets younger and younger.
Mad. And I think soccer is and was when I was playing so intense for that. Yeah. So I was scooped up at 9, and there was this mentality of, right, all your other sports, sorry, you're good enough to make it in so you've got the potential to make it in soccer. So you're not playing rugby, you're not trained. I was a sprinter. I loved rugby. I just naturally was very fortunate to be just athletic and good at a lot of sports. Yeah. And I ran the danger of at 9, 10, 11, 12, especially in secondary school, saying, oh, well, my sole focus is soccer now. And I think soccer on the whole was, and still is, so intense that they would scoop these kids up. I know, like Barcelona, I think if you hear the Messi story about how he was scooped up at like 14, all right, I think, and he was advised or asked to move away from his family, and Barcelona brought him up basically. And I was putting hours and hours and hours into soccer, and at the risk of missing out on so many other important things in my life, friends and trips away and nights out, that as you get older, you miss that. I think that's really important. Obviously, I didn't make it in soccer. I did very well and got to a certain level, but it was not my career. And I think you risk putting so much effort into that to make it, and everyone's telling you, mate, you're good enough, do it, keep going. And then when it doesn't work out, and for me, it didn't work out. At 18, I was told, sorry, you're not good enough. In hindsight, you go back and think, crikey, I've just dedicated 9 years of my life to this game, and it didn't work out. But that's where I was lucky. I had education behind
really
me.
Smart,
I had a great family. I was in a relationship at the time with my now wife. Even back then, we met at 16. So Yeah, I was lucky to have all this support around me, whereas you'll see a lot of guys when they get released at whatever age, 16, 17, 18, even in their early 20s, things can really fall apart for them. And I think that's really important to acknowledge, that you can't throw everything into this one sport. So I'm a big advocate for telling youngsters, just play any sport you can, as much as you can, because very few guys
Lionel Messi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I've got mates who are multimillionaires playing for European clubs around the world. But I also got mates who had to finish at my age. You know, we were released at the same time, and I remember that day being told by the manager, "Sorry, you're not good enough." And there were 5 of us walking out. You know, and it's emotional. I remember crying to my dad. On the phone, telling him, "Dad, I've been released," and it's pretty brutal. So yeah, I've seen two ends. I've seen guys go on and make careers from it, and I've seen guys not.
Do you think sporting clubs are getting better at, endorsing that sort of
backup plan?
Yeah, backup plan. Because I know here that sports clubs are pretty good with it. From what I hear, obviously, people are going to be dedicated, but I don't know, there might be a bit more of that going on. Do you think it's getting better? Or
I do. I think when I turned about 15, 16, there was an education and welfare officer designated to the club, and he was brilliant, and I still keep in touch with him. But at 17, 18, when life's getting full on and you're trying to juggle all these, your education, a career, in my case, a relationship, and becoming a dad at 18, which we can talk about in a second. The education and welfare officer for me was so important. So I know for a fact now clubs are employing designated people that are there to just look after the younger guys in the team. So they're definitely getting better. But I know 30 years ago, I know it wasn't. I know it was pretty brutal. And these guys were being released from a club that they were told they were going to be the next star at, and then saying, "Thank you very much, all the best," and there was no support. There was there was nothing. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. So I was lucky, and I've been fortunate enough to keep in touch with the education and welfare officer at Cardiff City, who's been unbelievable.
Yeah, right. So before we move on to how you changed your life, just quickly, do you want to name drop any of the best players you played against? Or
why not? So I played against Gareth Bale, who probably is the one guy that you may have heard of here. I know soccer's not huge in WA.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gareth Bale's my age, went to school in Cardiff.
Same nationality?
Same nationality. We're both Welsh. He went to Southampton when he was young. So I stayed at Cardiff City. So I was lucky. I lived 20 minutes from the training ground. I believe, and I don't know Gareth well enough. I don't know him at all, actually, but I know people. I know people who know him very well, and I believe he moved away up to Southampton at a very young age, sort of late, maybe 14, 15, 16, or at least he was. Try to keep microphone. Sorry, he was traveling back and forth a lot, and that happens in the UK. These boys will move 2-3 hours and play for clubs 2-3 hours away. Gareth Bale. Do you remember? You guys are probably too young. Carnu is a great name back,
Hal Robson,
back in the day. So Hal Robson, he's Welsh. I think he's probably a year or two younger than me. Yeah. But Carnu was a pretty famous soccer player. Aaron Ramsey was a teammate of mine, so I captained Aaron from the age of about 14. He was so good that he was playing a couple of years up, so he's 2 years younger than me.
Oh wow!
But he used to come and play with me at the under-16s when I was that age, and he'd be like, "Wow, this guy's pretty good." And he just hold his own, He was even though he's 14, he'd be playing against 16-year-olds and just bossing the place. Chris Gunter. There's probably over the years lots of guys that when I was young, they're also up and coming that you don't quite
remember them or know them.
You don't know them, and then they've gone on to make it big time. I played in the FA Youth Cup, we'd call it. So the FA Cup is the adult version, so to speak. So I played in the FA Youth Cup at the Emirates Stadium, the Arsenal.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a big Arsenal fan.
Oh, are you? Oh, well, you'd know Aaron then
Yeah, exactly.
pretty well. Well, is his name, yeah.
Yeah, we're great mates.
Yeah.
First name basis, me and Aaron.
Yeah,
He's
or
next
Rambo,
week.
as he,
Yeah.
as he, I'm sure you know. He's,
Yeah.
we know
Is
him
he
as.
Juventus now? Or
He
something like
was, and I think he's just left Juventus.
Okay.
Is he hanging up the boots now? Or?
I don't know. He's 30. How old is he going to be? 33 now. So
He's getting that age.
that? Go to
yeah.
the Euros.
So-
Unless he's going to do a Ronaldo.
Yes, you never know. He was. I could listen. I've lost touch with him, but I can remember Aaron at 14, 15, 16, and his first car when he turned up at the training ground, and I think he just signed his first professional contract when I was I would have been 18, he was 16, and I think he signed pro at 16. And
Wow.
I think he changed his car overnight he had like a little Ford Fiesta. I think it was like lime green, if I remember. And then overnight, he came in at like 16, or when he could drive, that was it, like 17, 18, he would have been then, in like an Audi TT. And we were like, mate, wow, this is amazing. And then he just catapulted, you can imagine. He went from Cardiff City to Arsenal. Yeah, and his life's gone such a different direction to mine. But yeah, I wouldn't change it, I guess, because I wouldn't be here now.
So how do you turn your life around from being released at such a young age to becoming a doctor?
So for me, with so much support around me. So as I say, I had parents and still do have parents who are so supportive. Luckily, I had an education and welfare officer at the club. My timing was impeccable, that the club employed this officer at the same time as, me getting released. I guess discipline, drive, determination. I remember there was like a 2-week period where in that 2 weeks I was released from the club. I then had to go and sit my ATAR exams, or ATAR equivalent exams at the same time.
A lot on your mind.
Yeah, and I remember getting a phone call from my now wife saying, Lloyd, I'm pregnant. And this was all in the space of 2 weeks.
Jeez.
And, hey, I'm not going to recommend, I wouldn't recommend being a dad at 18 at all.
Yeah.
But in that 2 weeks, it was like, wow, my life had gone from, this soccer player, enjoying life. Everyone telling you you're going to go and make it. And then within 2 weeks, it's like, okay, I'm not a soccer player anymore. I don't have a club. My girlfriend is pregnant, and crikey, I've got these big exams that I've really got to do well at now because I don't know where my life's going to go otherwise. So that was pretty brutal, and I think I just had parents who must have, I don't remember, it's a blur, but must have been pretty supportive, and I know were, but I don't remember the intricacies of it. A school, I had a headmaster who was really understanding. And the club, to be fair, were also understanding. And I ended up going back to the club about 10 years later as their doctor.
Oh, wow.
For a year. So
Full circle.
I was their match day medical coordinator. So they've looked after me. I've kept in touch with the club. And so if you ask me, how do you change? I don't know. Just life just takes over, doesn't it?
And
Life
you
doesn't
decided
stop.
pretty quickly you wanted to be a doctor?
I didn't. I knew that at sort of 13, 14, I loved the human body and I loved my biology classes. Did I know I wanted to be a doctor? Probably not. There are times I still don't think I want to be a doctor. There's some tough days where I'm like, wow, why didn't I choose something else? When you get these real ethical dilemmas and these challenging situations and breaking bad news and really seeing the difficulties people have, I think, actually there's probably some easier careers maybe to have chosen. But for me, my passion is the human body. I still love the anatomy and the physiology. And my son is doing human biology at the moment in Scotch. And I see the textbooks he's coming home with and I'm like, oh, brilliant. And I love helping him. I still got that passion for it. So it's 18 that was. And then, I went to somehow found my way to medical school. I won't go into too much detail about how I got there, but it wasn't the standard way of getting to medical school. You don't leave with a certain ATAR and jump straight into medical school. I had to go into another degree, and and I remember in that time, trying to. So my son had been born by then, actually. So I was first year studying with a newborn baby.
Bit of extra motivation.
Yeah, definitely. So university for me was a job, and I think that was my biggest mentality shift. I was going to uni with mates who, were partying, and uni was like a side hustle for them almost. They were still partying, playing all their sports, socializing, traveling whilst in uni. And for me, I was like, no, I'm in at 7 every morning, and I don't leave till 5, no matter how many lectures I've got.
Wow.
This is my job, because it has to be. I have to make sure that it works out. So so that was my
what a massive change in perspective, right? Like all of a
sudden
sudden you're like,
and I was trying to work as well, so I was actually trying to earn a wage to pay rent, because we'd moved out by then.
I was going to say, how are you doing that when you have 7 to 5 at university?
Yeah,
do you have like a night job?
Yeah, Friday evenings, Saturday mornings. I do soccer coaching. That was in fact. I was reflecting on this. I thought, what other things was I doing? So I was coached naturally. I was coaching soccer, and that's another thing the club were great at. They made you do your coaching badges while you were playing, so that they knew you had something to go back to. So for me, I had my coaching badge, so I went to just coach sort of 11-year-olds on a Saturday morning, and that earned me a bit of cash in hand. Can I say that? Yeah, cash in hand's work. I used to sell Christmas trees. I used to labor on building sites. It was mad, actually, just to get just extra cash and get home and help paying the rent. As my wife was my now wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. She was slogging away. She was a nursery nurse, just trying to earn and pay rent. So it was mad. At 18, 19, 20. We were like living like 40-year-olds, it was mad. We were pretty intense.
I was going to say, even just like going back to being picked up at 9, like you'd really have to grow up and mature so quickly.
At 18, I had a full head of hair, and then bang, it's
gone.
I know there's some genetics involved, but I honestly stress. Yeah. You can imagine. I was just really conscious. There's a stereotype, isn't there? If you think teen dads, teen pregnancies, there was this stereotype of, there you go, say goodbye to your life, and I was like, I was adamant that wasn't going to be me.
Yeah, well,
I was very lucky. I had support around me to ensure that didn't happen. But there is this stereotype, isn't there? I'm sure you guys would know that. You're a dad at 18. What sort of upbringing have you had? And, you must be your life's going to go off the rails now. And so I was like, that's really not happening. So you'll ask my son, we were super strict with him, with his discipline. And, we wouldn't let him step out of line. We made sure that he was, trying to do our best for him. And sure enough, here we are, almost 17 years down the line. And I think he's doing all right. I'll give him that.
So it sounds like you're pretty heavily entrenched in sort of the community at Cardiff and all of that.
Yeah.
So how do you go from there to deciding to move to Perth?
On
the other side of the world.
That's for me listening to my wife, to be honest, which I've always listened to my wife, and she hasn't done anything, or it hasn't been the wrong decision yet. So she was desperate to come out to WA, always had this, I think she always had this dream of coming out and living.
Did she have family here? Or?
A very close friend who she met back in Wales, who was from Perth, who moved back to Perth a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Could see the life that Perth was giving her friend, and was saying to me, once you qualify, once you get your GP qualifications, we're going out. We're going out there. So okay. And I was just thinking next exam, because I was doing exams until I was 30 just to get there. And then for me, it was make or break then. It was like, right, we're either going to, emigrate and do something different, or I was going to settle down as a GP for 30 years back in Wales. And thank goodness I listened to my wife, because it's been the best decision ever coming out here. It's the lifestyle it's given kids, the lifestyle it's given me. So listen to your wife, and I don't think you'll go far wrong, because what's it, happy wife, happy life, right? Is that the saying?
Absolutely.
So here in Perth, you're a practicing doctor, GP?
I am, yeah.
And then you've also got your own clinic, Man's Health?
Yeah, Man Health.
Health.
Yeah, I moved out here as a GP. So that's what I do 4 days a week. So I may see 30, 35 patients a day as a GP, 10, 15-minute appointments, just trudging through them. That's generally how GPs work. But 1 day a week, I do Man Health, which is my own. I've gone and sort of branched out into my own clinic, which is very much focused on men's health. And not just men's health, maybe the stereotypical men's health where everything's about erections, hair loss, libido. It's that there's so much more to men's health than that I'm trying to emphasize, that it's the whole man I'm trying to deal with. Heart risk, stroke risk, diabetes, weight, all these mental health, all these other things that should come with the phrase men's health that I think people forget. If you just go online now and you scroll through Facebook, social media, you'll see men's health is advertised as, oh, you're losing your hair, get this pill and will help, or oh, your erections are a bit, as you're getting older, your erections are declining, will help with that. And I noticed it was all being done online. There was none of that face-to-face. I think, hang on, guys, there's so much more to men's health than erections and hair loss. So I thought, right, well, I feel I'm well placed because I'm a guy, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
I'm a guy with what I would regard as quite a lot of experience from a young age.
Definitely been through a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I've not known adulthood. I've not known adulthood without a child. So you guys are you must be in your early 20s now, yeah. So yeah, for me, I had 4 months as an adult without a caring responsibility, and then my son came along when I was 18 years old and 4 months. So yeah, I've always had to have that, maybe that bit of extra responsibility. So I see that. I see the things that can go wrong. I see the difficulties that young men face. So I thought, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty well placed to offer that GP service, that medical service to guys. You walk into a GP surgery, and hopefully you guys don't have to go to a GP surgery. But if you did, you'd quickly come to realize, not every GP surgery, obviously, but you quickly come to realize it's often full of lots of women, children. Advertising on the wall is all about immunizing your children, breast cancer screening, cervical cancer screening. And I just never looked and thought, you know what, this is male friendly, because most GP surgeries aren't. They're often female friendly, child friendly. And there's good reason for that. But I never looked around and thought, yeah, this is a real welcoming environment for men. So I thought, well, that's where I'd like to create a clinic that was. So I try and offer longer appointments. So my first appointment is an hour. So I can really give guys that chance to talk. You get a good rapport. I can find out a little bit more about them, as opposed to trying to rush a 10-minute appointment. Instead of problem solving, I'm trying to give guys the chance to sort of ask questions and really just spend that time with me in my men's health clinic. And just, making it male friendly. And eventually I'd love to create a men's health hub that was purely about men and
it's definitely a market for it.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. Yeah. Do you think that's a greater thing of men just not seeking out help when they need it? And do you think it's a part of that? Because I've never really noticed when I go to the GP that but now that I think about it, it's kind of like...
Yeah. I think so. There's a lot of the men's mentality is, we run the risk of being a bit macho, that, we don't need to go and see our doctor. We'll just, it's a sign of weakness, all these things that clearly aren't true.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably part of it. We know that all the data says that men don't seek healthcare half as much as women.
Right.
But if you think about females, there's natural times for them to go and see a doctor. Contraception being a big part of when women should go and see a doctor or often go to get help. When they become pregnant, naturally, I'm pregnant. It's a natural life event, but you go and see a doctor. men don't have that as such until, well, I'm trying to think of a time where men have a real reason to go and see a doctor that's not, because I've got a problem. Whereas women have that. They have those natural times in their life where they engage with a doctor, whereas we as guys don't. So I think that plays a big part into why men maybe don't then have that connection with a doctor. They feel a little less comfortable seeing a doctor because some guys have never had to until there's a real problem, and then it's all a bit, like I was asking my son, I said, do you know how a GP surgery works? Do you know how you pay? Do you know how you book? Do you know what happens when you get there? Like, do you know how long an appointment time is? All these things that I think if you asked women, they probably know a lot more than men about how doctors and healthcare works.
I don't think I'd know.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my point, I guess. So he's trying to say, get familiar with a doctor, and that's where I hope my clinic is something that guys can engage with. Even if you don't have a problem, just come along and ask. If you've got lots of questions, make a list and just come and ask me. Just trying to make a GP service and doctors more approachable for young men, because I think that's so important.
So what are some of the most common things you deal with people coming in?
Well, it all depends what age I'm seeing. So I'll be honest, I don't see many guys in my clinic that are your age. It's something I'd love to see more of. A lot of the guys I'm seeing are 30 plus, who generally are wanting to optimize. So some are wanting to optimize their lives and their health. So they're saying, listen, I don't really have a problem, but I'm recognizing that I'm getting to an age where maybe I will soon. So they're just wanting to make sure that they are in the best possible health that they can be for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So often there's not a problem, but there's a worry about future problems. But I am seeing guys who are maybe overweight, who are recognizing that there's a family history of things like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and or cancers that they're worried about. So they don't have any symptoms now, and they're not particularly concerned about it now in their 30s and 40s, but they are worried about, well, what does this mean when I'm 50 and 60? So it's engaging with that early, I think, is really important. I'm seeing guys who, have maybe been given a new diagnosis. So they've seen a random doctor on a street corner, their local doctor that they've never met before, who said, you're diabetic, or look, your cholesterol's through the roof. And they've never had the chance to then explore that, and they didn't feel they had the time and that connection with that doctor to ask all these other questions. So I'm seeing lots of guys seeing my clinic and going, oh, wow, okay, you're a doctor who wants to help men. The way your appointments work, you get an hour with me to start with. And so they're coming to see me and sort of saying, right, well, I've got this big, long list of questions. I've been told I'm diabetic. What does that mean? What can I do about it? So I think they're the sort of guys that I'm seeing. And I'd love to see guys from the age of 18 all the way up to 110, however old that oldest guy is.
Well, I was pretty curious to ask you from your perspective, because we've been talking about it quite a bit on recent episodes, but what's your stance on mental versus physical health and the importance?
Well, I think they have to go hand in hand. So when I was, I know you briefed me on some of the things we talk about today, and that was the one sort of topic I thought, how am I going to explain that? And it's really difficult. And I think the reason it's difficult is because you can't separate them. I think that's probably the emphasis here, is they just go hand in hand. I think you just have to think of it as health, and mental health has to be given just as much emphasis and time as physical health. So yes, I have guided discussions about, right, how is your mental health? What does that mean? But so frequently it's impacted by your physical health. So if you're not sleeping, if you're overweight, if you're concerned about the way you look, the foods you're eating, alcohol, smoking, all these things that guys are doing that have physical implications on their health, those same things are having mental implications on their health as well. And I think that's what you've got to keep bearing in mind. I think so. I hope that's a reasonable answer. Is I found it really difficult to differentiate them without writing a big book on it. I guess is they're both equally important and they go hand in hand. So if you look after your physical health, I think the mental health will benefit. And likewise, if you're looking after your mental health, and yeah, you could ask me, well, what does that mean then? What could you do to look after your mental health? Well, I guess I've answered it. If you just do the things that look after your physical health, your mental health will benefit. And likewise, do things that are good for your mental health and your physical health will benefit. I think that's probably the best way that I'd say it. What do you guys think? Let's put it back on you.
I feel like there's been stigmas around it in the past, but with mental health, as you were saying, you've got to train it as if you train your body. Your mind is almost like a muscle, and you've got to practice things like meditation, things along those lines, just as if you'd go to the gym every morning. And a lot of people don't realize that or have that sort of perspective on it. And people need to kind of have a paradigm shift towards that and realize that it's just as important. And sometimes improving your mental health will help improve your physical health because you'll be more motivated to go and do stuff, and vice versa.
Exactly.
Going and exercising will make you feel better in the day and just in general your well-being.
I totally agree. You'll see apps out there, mindfulness apps and meditation apps, and I've tried them, and they don't always work for me. And I'm sure there's lots of guys out there thinking, "Oh, I've tried it, it's not working." But I guess just that awareness that, well, yeah, they are. This help and support is out there. Try it. And yeah, there's been times I'm thinking, right, I'm going to dedicate 5 minutes now. I'm going to try one of these apps and just listen and get that time. And I can hear my kids in the background, and I'm like, this isn't working. But at least I've tried, and I'm recognizing.
You're aware of it. Right?
Yeah, you're aware.
I think that's the most important thing, because most people are like, I can't try to meditate, can't do it. Something always goes into my mind, and then well, at least you're trying.
Yeah, and you're aware of it.
Yeah,
so,
you're taking the moment to look after your brain.
Yeah, that's it. So I think that's a good point. It's a big topic, but yeah, I just encourage just that initial conversation. I ask every guy in my clinic, how's your mental health? And I know it sounds like a broad question, but it's so interesting to, what are the answers I get back? So I think you're spot on, Cam.
Well, I feel like it kind of ties in to the next thing I wanted to talk about, with how with young men today in society growing up, it's a bit of an emerging trend of how young men are struggling in society because they don't have that support circle around them for their mental health. And I just wanted to ask kind of what's your opinion or what advice you could have to young men growing up today?
So I think, first off, let's say, be comfortable and engage with a doctor early on in your manhood, so to speak, because I worry that doesn't happen for reasons that I've previously talked about, that there's no natural time to see a doctor. So I think just get comfortable with your where's your local doctor? How does it work? How do I book? Just having that awareness, and even just going along and seeing a doctor once so you can find out a little bit more about how the system works, and go with questions. So that'd be the first thing, is get familiar with the healthcare system. Secondly, I think social connections are really important. And I say that from experience. So I was an 18-year-old who felt very isolated very quickly as a dad when all my mates were in social groups, in universities, freshers' weeks. They were part of teams and clubs. And for me, I didn't have that because unfortunately, I guess my priorities were more driven by, I've got to get this degree, I've got to pay my rent, and I missed out on those social connections, I feel. It's been 18 and sort of even now, I think I don't have a huge amount of social connections, but I've just become comfortable with that. That's all I've known in adulthood. So I would say social groups for guys is really important. So if you know guys who are maybe just not in that social group, you think, he's often on his own or he's not coming out as much, we know that getting guys in that social group, that little bit of camaraderie, really does help both physical and mental health. So I think that's the second thing I'd say is, get engaged socially with guys of your age, because I think that's really important. And I think form good habits now. So it's another thing I was reflecting on. If you think of the human lifespan, you spend 18 years being cared for officially. Then you've got probably 10 to 15 years where you're fully independent on your own and you can do whatever you want. Then at 35, average, roughly, you start caring for somebody again, because you generally, most people have children, a lot of people have children. Then your children grow up. Then just as you think, oh, okay, I no longer need to care for somebody. Well, guess who's now in their 70s, 80s? It's your parents. So you start caring for them. Then give it 10, 15 years, you become the grandparents and you need caring for again, you know? And you think about that lifespan, you've gone from 0 to death, and there's only 10 to 15 years where you're not being cared for or you're not caring for someone else. And I think you guys are in that phase now. And I think it's so important that while you don't necessarily have that commitment to somebody else, from a caring responsibility point of view, then this is the time to form those really good habits that are going to benefit your health. So exercise, sleep, what you're eating, what you're drinking, your social groups. Now is that really important time. Don't get me wrong, I maybe missed out on that 10, 15 years where I could solely focus on myself. But if you guys have that luxury, and not every guy does, but if you do, form those habits now. I think that's really important, because you get to 35 like me, and I wish I'd done a few more leg days, put it that way, because my back's playing up, my glutes aren't strong enough. And, I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't have those social groups. I don't have that many mates. And listen, I'm comfortable with that. But I know there'll be guys out there who can get to 35 and really need those mates that don't have them. So yeah, you're in a great time in your lives now, guys. And get social, form habits, and go and see a doctor now while you're well, and ask questions.
Well, adding on to that, what's your thoughts on finding a purpose? Because I feel with a lot of young males in today, especially, they're directionless, and if they were to find that purpose, they could almost go until the end of the earth, like in pursuit of that purpose, and be happy. Like finding a purpose and really,
we're getting into the Sunday existentialist deep dive.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow,
that's a big question.
Well, I guess the one thing I would say is,
any advice for that?
My recommendation was, don't let that purpose be becoming a dad at 18, because that was my purpose, and I wouldn't recommend it. It's a tough purpose to have, but listen, it made me. That's a tough one. I guess you don't necessarily need a purpose. I think just appreciating, just being, maybe that's very philosophical, isn't it? But just appreciate that you are as a young guy, you are in a time of your life where you've got flexibility. And maybe don't stress about having a purpose. I look at my son now, he's 16, almost 17, and we're starting to talk about, well, where are you going to uni? Or some people will ask, well, where are you going to uni? And it's like, no, hang on. I'm going to say, it's not just uni. That's not the natural progression now.
Yeah.
Take a year, just, travel, go and work locally, go and work in the local coffee shop, go and labor, go and just experience as much as you can. And I think your purpose will naturally find you. So don't put pressure on yourself. As I say, you've got 10, 15 years when no one's reliant on you, generally, between 18 and 30 odd. So don't stress, because I'm 35 now, and I'm carving out a little niche for myself. I'm still not at a point in my life where I think, oh, well, I've made it, and I'm comfortable, this is me, I've got my purpose. Well, I'm still carving that out at 35. So I think appreciate that you can't always strive for something, because you will always strive for something. I think even in your 60s, you're striving for that next thing. And I think as guys, we put that pressure on ourselves of get the next thing, earn more money, live in a bigger house, drive a better car. And that's the risk, isn't it? You're constantly striving. And I think you're going to get to an old age and think, crikey, all I've done with my life is want something better. So, You don't always need a purpose. You don't always need to strive. Just enjoy now. Let's say that. That's philosophical.
I really like that. You don't get, because obviously there's a lot of stuff out there about finding your purpose and being driven to
It's the
achieve
journey,
your
not
goals.
the destination.
Hey,
Yeah.
there you go.
That's it.
So
We're all
deep.
getting philosophical now.
Yeah. Definitely. There's lots of. Do you know what? I was out running a couple of days ago, and I use my Saturday mornings. And this might be silly. I get up at 4 on a Saturday morning, 4:30 if I'm really wanting to
David
lie.
Goggins.
Right? Yeah, I know. Yeah. This 4 a.m. club, 5 a.m. club, loads of it on social media. And one thing I will say is don't put pressure on yourselves to do that. I think you get so much, and I'm sidetracking now, but as young guys, you are bombarded with so much information. You can flick through videos every 5 seconds, right? TikTok, Instagram, Reels, all that stuff. And you are bombarded with all this stuff about you've got to sleep 8 hours, you've got to get up at 5 a.m., you've got to meditate, you've got to do this. And I look at my poor son thinking, he must be thinking, there's not enough time in my day to do all this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I digress a bit. So I get up on a Saturday morning, I will get up very early just to have my time. And that for me is I put a head torch on and I go running along Cottesloe seafront. So if you see some dodgy guy running with a head torch, that's me. And that for me is my little headspace. But that gives me a chance to reflect. And I was only thinking the other day, I've got this dream. We've all got these dreams. Yeah, people talk about dreams and aspirations. But for me, I think don't worry about what that dream is. Just having a dream was enough to make me feel so good about myself. So I was out, and you may think this is a load of gobbledygook, Lloyd, what are you on about? But I was out running and I was just excited for this dream that I had. And I thought, this dream of my men's health clinic and making it bigger and helping all these guys. That's my dream. That's my aspiration. I was running along thinking, I'm feeling good about myself just for having that dream. I was getting excited. Oh, this is brilliant. None of that dream's a reality yet. I haven't got to where I want to be necessarily, but I was just so intrigued to think, the dream itself is what's making me excited, making me feel good about myself. And I may get to old age and never achieve that dream, but I've gone all my life feeling good about this dream, and yeah, I don't know. Does that sound like a load of rubbish? I don't know. But
not
having the dream, having the aspiration is...
It's the purpose.
Yeah, that maybe is the purpose, whatever it is. As long as you've got that, I think that's what makes you feel good about yourself. Whether you achieve it or not, it's probably irrelevant because you're always trying to aspire to something else. So, yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, it ties in with what we were talking about
Yeah,
before.
yeah. So, no, it's an interesting one. And I'm not someone who talks a lot about, I'm not great at talking about my own mental health and,
As a
and all these theories.
man health
yeah,
doctor.
yeah. I'm not, and I recognize that, but I think
It's hard to talk about. It's like, because
it
there's no like, clinic. Well,
There is a
obviously
clinic now.
No, there are definitions and whatnot now, and there's a lot more awareness coming about it. But yeah, it's not obvious, right? You're not tearing a hamstring and walking in and going, oh, look, I've torn my hands.
yeah, definitely.
You might be unsure whether you're having mental health issues.
Yeah.
No, I'm not depressed. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's impossible
It's
to
hard.
It's impossible to identify and analyze. And
Yeah. No, I
don't know.
think my parents are over from the UK at the moment, and it's my mum's 60th birthday this weekend, and I think, and I don't want to get too emotional, and I got to be careful what I say here, but my parents are getting older. I'm living 6,000 miles away from them. If you really want to think quite solemnly, there's only a certain amount of times I'm going to see my parents again, and if you really reflect on that, and I was sat around that, I've got some cake for you guys as well, by the way, from my mum's 60th. So
happy 60th, Lloyd's mum.
Yeah. So
Shout out.
yeah, I'll
Shout
show her
out.
this. She'll love that. I've distracted myself now. But my mum, and I was sat there thinking, I want to tell my mum how much I love her, and then my dad sat, and I want to tell my dad how much I love him, and I was sat there, I can't say it's really hard. Now's not the time to say it. We're all just, and I think, no, so listen, I'll say it on here. How about that? It's a bit easier to say. So love you, mum, love you, dad.
camera.
Yeah, I love you all, my family. But yeah, it is hard. And I thought, crikey, Lloyd, just say it. Say, Mum, I love you. Well, it's great to see you on your 60th birthday. Thanks for coming out here to see me. And I take it as a compliment that she wants to fly 6,000 miles to the other side of the world to spend her 60th with me.
Not just the sunny beaches of Perth.
Yeah, might be that, and maybe not me. But yeah, but it's really hard. I think, great, it's something so easy to say, but you struggle.
Showing gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude and saying it. So I know I feel it, but to say it's really hard as guys. So yeah, I think just recognizing that.
Well, I mean, I know we asked Andrew as well when he was on, but yeah, compiling all that sort of stuff into the podcast and yeah, how have you found that process? Do you enjoy
Tackle Talk?
Tackle Talk, yeah. So I'm actually on a spying mission, I guess. So Andrew came on and just see how you guys do it. I'm doing the same. So we'll get Addy, who's our third part of the podcast, on. Yeah, we'll suss it out. You guys have such better equipment than us. We're just three boring old men in a clinic room. But
our studio is pretty.
It's pretty. It's. I didn't know what to expect, but it's pretty good. And you got a uniform as well, guys. Your Patagonias.
We haven't spoken about this, but we're wearing the same shirt.
Yeah. So
completely deliberate.
Yeah. I found it great. For me, it's my little social time with other guys. You know, if nothing else, it's me. So Andrew's a couple of years older than me. Addy's not quite as old as Andrew, but yeah, just three guys meeting on a Tuesday evening after a busy day in work, just offload. And this is why I wanted to come on. And so you guys, it keeps me young. I think you're in your early 20s. I remember where I was, and I think it's great. And so, yeah, I use Tackle Talk as a chance, purely selfishly, to just engage with guys and talk all things men's health. But it's great that I can talk to guys through the podcast and give a little bit of information about various men's health issues. You know, we've had a plastic surgeon on. You know, we've had pelvic floor physios on.
A sexologist
who's
coming
soon. On next, and Melissa is amazing. And yeah, if you got to get used to talking about your penises for that one, guys. So be prepared. So no, Melissa is brilliant, and yeah, I work closely with Melissa. A few of her guys have come to see me, and vice versa. We had a dietitian on last week, or we interviewed a dietitian. So yeah, watch out for that one. Just we're trying to make health more interesting for men
and digestible.
Yeah, definitely. So, and on that point, yeah, shall I give you your cakes now? How about that?
That's very kind.
You don't have to eat them. I've even got forks, but if you guys are a bit worse for wear after, did you have a night out last night?
Oh, yeah, no, you could probably tell.
Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, I'll leave those there for you.
Wow, that's really kind.
Who did you think? I bet you didn't think a doctor would be coming on going, eat cake, guys.
On a Sunday morning.
Cake. Yeah. But I think it's
very much.
It's a great
really
hangover cure for you, Gianni. So
it's going to break the intermittent fast that I was so deliberately doing this morning.
Yeah. How long? Well, I guess if you were still drinking Alka-Pops at 4 a.m. this morning, then you've only fasted for a couple of hours, so you might need to give it a little bit longer, eh?
Exactly.
So yeah, help yourselves. But I want the forks back. But
oh no,
I'm joking.
We will give those back to you.
Yeah. So no, it's been great. I've really enjoyed this, and yeah, just that chance to keep myself young. And I think it's great what you guys are doing. You know, just trying to open up conversations for young men and women. Clearly, I know you've got
13% female audience. Shout out.
Is it down to 13%?
What do you mean down? It's going to be up to 50% after they see me, guys. So,
speak about keeping young.
Yeah. So, no, I've got a beautiful wife to go home to. Who's I think we're going to spend the afternoon on the beach.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
So you couldn't do that in Cardiff.
So where can we find you? Where can the audience find your stuff?
So manhealth.com.au is my website. Got Instagram. A little bit on Facebook. So Instagram would be at Man Health Clinic, I think. Crikey, that's saying, yeah. So my wife takes care of a lot of the social media stuff.
You get your son to do it.
Yeah, well, he gives some great ideas. He was like, Dad, you were saying, guys, you've got to do what Gianni and Cam are doing. Like, you've got to film it. You've got to do this. I love the way you guys do all the graphics and
The green screen.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Campbell is the mastermind.
Yeah,
behind
what
all
are you
of
going to
that,
have
so
on the
he's,
green screen, by the way?
What do you
don't
want
know.
for this episode? We can do
Gareth
whatever you want.
Bale,
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, I'll get in touch
Welsh
with you on
flag or something like that.
that. Yeah, put the Welsh flag. Put a few guys sort of smiling, enjoying. Yeah, I don't know. I'll get back to you on that.
All right. We'll leave links in the description to the video for all of that stuff.
Yeah, thank
and then
you.
also Tackle Talk as well. Go give it a listen. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please do have a listen.
Otherwise, thanks very much for your time, Lloyd. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. No, thanks,
Beautiful.
guys.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Cheers.